Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Brendan, and I hope all of you guys are having a good morning, evening, and wherever you guys are from. And today is another great day to be in the world of cryptocurrency. We've actually seen a pretty stable crypto market in the last 24 hours and also over the last week or so, but we'll get into that in just a second. Over the last 24 hours, we've seen most mainstream cryptocurrencies stuck inside of this 1 to 2% range, and what I mean by that is they've either been green 1 or 2% or red 1 or 2%, and there hasn't been a whole lot of volatility. Bitcoin's up 2% on the day, Ethereum's up 1%, BNB a little bit of an outlier, up 4.5%, and then we have things like Cardano up just barely a third of a percent, and then things like XRP, which is almost exactly even on the day. A few outliers in the industry right now are things like Terra Luna, which is down about 15%, and then also Cosmos, down about 7.5%. But as we're making our way through this list here, you can see that really nothing is outside of that 2% range, with a couple of very few exceptions and outliers. But over the last week, we have seen a pretty consistent crypto market as we haven't moved more than a couple $1,000s towards the up or the downside. And I want to highlight this because this has been a pretty low range over the last week here. And I say low, and that's, I guess, in reference to how volatile the crypto market has been over the last couple of months. But it's been about a 12 to 13% range where crypto for the most part has just been bouncing around and sitting inside of. Really anywhere between, I would say, $34,000 and $38,000. There's been this $4,000 consolidation period on Bitcoin right here. I'm gonna make this just a little bit larger so that everyone can see it. But there has been about this $4,000 consolidation period where people have been able to collect and accumulate Bitcoin or prepare for what they want to do next, either bullish or bearish. Now, one of the things that I want to talk about here is the news, and then we're going to get back into the chart because there's a pretty common theme that's happening here on Bitcoin where previous resistance is turning into current support, or excuse me, previous support is turning into current resistance, and this has been happening for at least a couple of months now, and it has been a pretty recurring trend, but we'll talk more about that one in just a second because Visa says that there are crypto-linked card usage has now hit $2.5 billion in its first quarter, which is massive. Now, I understand these companies do hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars in transactions, but $2.5 billion in its first quarter is certainly a really good start to the year of 2022, despite everything that's happening around us. I think people are so stuck on what is happening in the bearish news or the bearish things that are coming out right now that they're not seeing just how much the industry as a whole is really moving forward. If you were to come to me and say that Visa crypto cards would have done $2.5 billion in a quarter a couple of years ago, 2018, 17, even 19, I would have said that you are crazy and that we're not at that place yet. But here we are just a couple years later on track to hit $10 billion in a year, which is ridiculous. So clearly the space is growing. The actual use case of how people are spending and transacting and using cryptocurrencies as a means of payment is growing every single day. And I can't talk about this one too much because I feel like I always am talking about it. But people really are using this. Adoption is happening faster than you think. Whether it's a bull market or a bear market, technology and adoption has been moving forward. Same thing with the NFT space. Now, these are just the Solana NFTs because CoinMarketCap was not allowing me to see the Ethereum-based NFTs, but most of the NFT industry is pretty green as well. I know NFTs have been a booming market here and people have loved trading them. I would say unless you want to put a lot of time into it, it may not be the industry for you because it requires, in my opinion, it requires a lot more time and effort than the cryptocurrency market does. But you can make money really fast in it. You can also lose money very fast. So if that's something that you like to do, all for it. I'm not your financial advisor in any way, but I want to talk a little bit more about this Bitcoin chart because as I mentioned earlier, support and resistance are flopping, I feel like every single month at this point. And what I mean by that is we can see that there's very clear levels of support on Bitcoin. When Bitcoin fell back in around November, end of November, we saw support around the $53,000, $54,000 area. Very clear. We had 3 daily candles all bouncing very well off of this range. And we're going to zoom in. Now, after we bounced off this range, eventually we did fall through this. So previous support was now being checked as resistance immediately, because upon the bounce to the upside, we tested this and then rejected it. Well, now we actually tested this area a second time, rejected it 2 separate days over here before having our 50 and 100 EMA cross downwards. And after we rejected this, we fell back to the support. Now, clearly we can see that we bounced off of support on Bitcoin at this range, not once, but twice. And after breaking through the second time, to no one's surprise, we retested it as resistance. Now, this is very much like a break, hook, and go pattern, meaning that we're breaking through, we're hooking, verifying that what was previously support is now resistance, and then continuing in the same direction that we have been headed in. So we broke, we hook, and now we're going down. So with Bitcoin doing this, that's what I'm looking for once again, because this has got to be at least the 3rd or 4th or 5th time that we've done that. I could even draw another one if we wanted to draw another line up here. And it's a pretty bad uneven line, but same sort of concept, that we were very clearly using this area as support, and then we were very clearly using it as resistance before we headed down further. So there's a million examples of this happening time and time again in crypto, but that's what I'm watching for in the immediate time frame. You know, what is going to happen when we test previous support, now turn resistance? Are we going to reject again? And, does this mean that new lows are coming? And a lot of people have been talking about whether or not that's a possibility. And maybe we'll dive into that in just a second. But the second thing that I've been seeing a lot of is people talking about the volume. People have been saying that the volume isn't good. We're still at really bad volume, which just simply isn't true. So we're on the daily chart right now. And I want to highlight 2 things. As we zoom in down here, keep an eye on this section, because this is what our volume is going to be. And we're actually going to compare the red and the green volume, which is the buying and the selling on the day, to some historic moments. So for the red side, let's start with the bears first. This is actually the highest level of selling pressure or selling volume that we have seen since May, all the way back in here. And I'm covering it up all the way back in here. This is actually the highest level of selling volume, the most volume that we've had in the red since the middle of May of 2021. Now, on the flip side of that, let's look at the green. This is actually the highest level of green or buying volume that we've seen since since July of 2021. So both of these are 6 months high for volume. Volume as a whole is doing really well. Now, clearly, it's not always going to stay this high. Volume is not always going to keep climbing. We have already seen that volume has started to fall off just a little bit. It's still very good. There's still a lot of people buying and selling in these areas, but volume is doing, for the most part, pretty well right now. There seems to be a real battle between the bulls and the bears trying to decide which direction that this wants to go. Do we want to keep this pattern of turning former support into resistance and heading downwards, or do we want to break this and then start to try to trend to the upside? I think that's what the market makers and a lot of the community is really still trying to figure out. Now, I will say, on the daily RSI, which stands for the Relative Strength Index, we got to a point where we were pretty clearly oversold. Now, I'll always say that there's no such thing as quote-unquote oversold. Just because something is oversold, that doesn't mean that it has to get bought up and that people can only buy from here on out and there's only upside potential. What this does mean, though, is it's in a general representation that Bitcoin is probably overextended to the downside. And I wouldn't even say that this is something that is confirmed until there is a higher swing low in the oversold territory. So we're already very clearly oversold down here on the Relative Strength Index. What I would like to see is to maybe bounce, do something, come back down, and then have a pretty nice bounce. Now, if I were to see something like this, I would see the swing low right here and then a higher swing low right next to it. And this would show me that the bears are getting weaker upon every attempt to the downside. And this is something that could be a sign of weakness for any kind of bears or people who want to have some more red in the markets. Now, we haven't seen that yet. This is just something that I'm theorizing. If we are going to turn bullish, I would imagine that we see something like that. And it would have to be pretty clear. But if it does happen, I would be pretty satisfied as someone who wants to see the price of Bitcoin move upwards. So I understand there's two sides to every coin. Everyone loves trading. Some people love shorting the markets. Other people love longing the markets. Some people just like buying shares. Some people like trading NFTs. There really is a place for everyone, and that is something that is increasing every year with things like DeFi, Play to Earn, and the metaverse continuing to grow. So no matter where you are in the world of cryptocurrency, it is still a great time to be a part of it. Adoption is continuing, prices are still fluctuating, and there is a lot of stuff getting built on the backbone of a lot of these platforms. So hopefully you did enjoy the video. If you did enjoy, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. We have a lot more content coming out. We usually about 2 to 3 videos a week. So if you want to see more video like this, stay tuned on the charts and the news and everything else that's happening in cryptocurrency. This is going to be your one-stop shop for it. So appreciate all of you guys for watching. If you did, again, smack that like button, smack that subscribe button, and I will see you all in the next video.